Hey, good evening, everyone. This is Roy Weiser from Weiser Investment Services here in Virginia Beach. We provide the investment advice for TSP tips tonight, but we're going to be covering something a little bit different. We have another application called ProFunds tips. That's not just related for the TSP, but this is for anyone with both an individual or an IRA, whether it Roth. It can be for estates and things like that. So we're going to cover a little bit about what ProFunds is, the company itself, and then how we incorporate ProFunds tips with it. And so it's good to have everybody on the Zoom call. Again, I'm Roy Weiser. My daughter Megan Cahoon is with me in the room here, and we're at Weiser Investment Services, like I said, providing the TSP tips. And we also live in Virginia Beach, Virginia. A little bit about my background. Again, I was active in sports during my growing up years, let's say. Pop Warner Football, Little League, graduated Naval Academy in 76, went Naval Aviation, flew was a backseater in F4s and F14s. Megan came along on the far left over there, and then I passed some Series 7 and 65 while I was still in the Navy. Became a CFP, retired in 2000 from the Navy, and then worked with NAVC and got my master's and doctorate. And then we started TSP tips. Megan is now working with me, and now we have ProFunds tips. Uh, Again, we like to go through, made it through many cruises, many deployments, takeoffs equal landing, very important, avoid the mishaps. And I really just started the business at the request of some of my friends and family. And what we do within Wisewood Investment Services, outside of the subscription service, we also have clients. And the three bullets there are what we try to do with our individual clients. We want to participate in trending markets, try to minimize losses, and invest in those sectors that have a high performance ranking. And we'll talk more about high performance ranking. And you might have heard me discuss it more when we had our seminar, TSP Tips seminar, about 3 weeks ago. So tonight, first thing on the agenda, what is ProFunds? ProFunds, a family of funds, just like any other family, let's say Fidelity or Vanguard, but they have a specialty. It's a very basic service that they have, and they have all of their funds are not actively managed. They all have indices that they follow, just like the TSP does. How we have the C, S, and I funds, but they have much more variety, and we'll go through some of that right now. I've been using these funds for about 25 years or so since they came into inception. So, ProFunds. Okay, here it's a very basic website, and they get right down into all of the different topics that you have. But these are the tabs that you have across. We're going to cover these real quick. First of all, what are the mutual funds that they have? They have classic, which we'll go into, inverse, something you don't see every day. Ultra, as in leveraged, instead of a 1-to-1 ratio like the C fund has, they have a 2-to-1 ratio and 1.5. They have numerous different industrial sectors, including semiconductors, and then they also have inverse funds for those sectors. On the far right up there, they do have some rising and falling dollar funds and also rising rates that go along with interest rates. So you have a good option. So we're going to cover each of these in just a little detail right now. Okay, the first one you can see there, this is very similar to the Morningstar box, and I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but basically,
Not on the back though.
can you hear me? Okay. All right. With the classic funds that you have here, you see on the left side, it basically has for each of those 3x3x3 boxes there, a total of 9. You have funds that correspond to each of those different indices. So if you look at the top row in the middle, that's the large cap blend. And usually what that follows is the S&P 500. That would be your C fund. And then you can see on the far left, they have a large cap growth, They have a large cap value, some mid cap funds. They have a NASDAQ 100 fund. And you'll notice that they have all of these funds are primarily, they have a 1-to-1 ratio that they utilize. Okay. So 1-to-1 ratio on the classic side. On the ultra tips, they also have major funds that cover the major indices within the equity markets, the S&P 500, Dow Jones Industrial, the EAFE, which is what the international fund is, and within TSP. But they also cover a mid-cap fund, one of those blend funds, NASDAQ 100, and then the Russell 2000. But you notice they have a 2-to-1 ratio there inside that red block. While the C fund and the classic fund had S&P, that was a 1-to-1 ratio. The Ultra Bull has a 2-to-1, meaning that if the S&P 500 goes up 1% for the day, this fund, the Ultra Bull, goes up 2%. Okay, so that's how it corresponds. So a little bit more volatile and a little bit more action involved with these funds. They can also be a little bit more volatile because of that 2-to-1 ratio. So we also have, like I said, the classic. This is the Ultra. And then the third model that we have is the sector tips. While this includes all the funds that you saw in the Ultra section, they are also contained in here. But you can see on the far right column at the top, it has pharmaceuticals, precious metals, real estate, semiconductor technology. It also has blended funds over here for ultra emerging markets, ultra Japan, Latin America. And then also over on the left side, you'll see things like healthcare, energy. Today, we also put out a buy on consumer discretionary and consumer staples. But that's where it comes from. And so we'll go in and out of these sectors depending upon their performance rankings, as you see. Most of these funds, again, the ultra ones that we saw in the slide previous to this, they have a 2-to-1 ratio, but some of the funds also have a 1.5. And these are all located right on the website. These are just screenshots of the website. Okay, next one. Now that you know something about the mutual funds, again, those are all index funds. How do you open up a new account? As you go through the screens at the top of the home page, you'll come across the tab and it says, go to shareholder services. This is a quick, about 12-page booklet that tells you how to go ahead and invest, the process that is involved. You'll notice that there are different account values that you need to open up for an account. If it's self-directed, it would be 15,000. And some of the stuff that we deal with, what you'll find is that what you'll find is that this $15,000 would be in your name, and that's how it works. And it's very similar to what we do with TSP tips. So you can either fill out paperwork or you can even register online if you like. There's a link for that. This would be only good for if you had an individual or a joint account, something like that. If you are going to open a account that does not meet this requirements up here, and you want to do a retirement account, such as a retirement trust, corporate, or partnership, you will need to download and print the new account forms and then go ahead and send those in. And you can see this, it's under one of the other tabs. That on the far right there is that shareholder services guide that you saw that tells you what the process is to open up all those accounts. And there you have your basic ones that you have, such as individual and joint, a taxable one, whether you want trust or business, IRA, whether it be traditional and or Roth, and then a simple account. And then below that, if you scroll down when you're on the website, you'll see other things like how to make a direct rollover from one IRA to another, or any other beneficiary forms that need to be submitted in conjunction with the individual account forms, let's say. So where are those things item? It's on, or where are those listed? They're under the Fund Resources tab, the second tab to the right, at the top of the page. And you'll see there it has a product guide, which gives you some quick information about each of the different funds, what's the benchmark that it covers, and also the documents and literature, which has the account funds also there. Another place to have it, the additional account services, again, the account forms, and on the left side is where you would register that account if you did want to set it up online. Okay, so 2-to-1 ratio with the ultra funds. Okay, if the top left corner up there, you'll see that that is the ultra NASDAQ 100 fund, and it has ultra in front of it.
Okay.
Please make sure that your mics are muted, please. But you'll see ultra, which defines it as a 2 times fund. So when the NASDAQ 100 index goes up 1%, this goes up 2%. But the thing I'd like to make you aware of is that it really, with these 2-time and 1.5-time ratios, you have to watch out exactly where you're doing. You just can't put it in there and buy and hold it and set it on cruise control, because you will see the different market movements. On here, you can see where it is in 2022 at the start of it, when the market was topped out there. Then we had a tough year during 2022 and it's climbed back. So just now it's trying to get back to where it was back in the beginning of 2022. While if you did an easy moving average cross strategy, such as you'll see up here with the yellow line, that's a 20-day moving average, 20 period moving average, and a 50 period. If you would have sold it there, you would have gotten out around in here, and then conversely, you would have came back in here and being able to take advantage of the majority of the gains over the last year or so. Okay, one of the things I do want to mention, and again, talks about the volatility of some of these funds when you use leveraged funds, is that while small losses are easy to recover, the problem you have is that if you lose 50% of your money, it takes 100% gain in order to get back even to where you were. And you basically saw that on the previous slide, how it took almost a year and a half to recover. So again, we recommend, if you're going to use ProFunds tips on the ultra and/or sector models, that you go ahead and go make allocation changes on a daily basis. Classic, it's a 1-to-1 ratios, so it's not as needed to go ahead and make those changes on a daily basis. Again, a lot of people, that statement at the bottom, if you have $10,000, you make 100%, you now have 20,000. But if you lost 50%, you're still not 50% ahead, down to break even basically, because you had 20,000, you lost 50% of that. All right, so let's take a look at this. This is the bull fund, which is the 1-time ratio with the S&P 500. And again, you can see there where it has a cross scenario, where at the top one is when the index crosses it. You would, in this scenario, you could sell it, and then you could repurchase it when it gets on the right side, where the 20 period crosses above the 50. That's just one scenario that you can have. Now, what you'll have here is that this is the blue line is still that ultra bull, the bull fund. But what I did is superimpose this from the middle of 2019 on what the 2-time bull fund, the ultra bull fund, would have done. So you can see the volatility that it had over COVID, how quick it dropped, and then how quickly it can go back up again. And if you just take a look again at these crosses at times, where you could get in and out at times, that would be able to help you out. But this just gives you a perspective on how much volatility these 2-time funds have. Now, there's also one other thing. It's called an inverse fund. So this purple line that you see right there, that is the bear fund. The bull fund mirrored the S&P 500, but the bear fund mirrors it inversely, the S&P 500. So on the far left during COVID, because the S&P 500 was dropping, this fund increased during that bearish market during COVID. And then it sold off as the market continued. And that was on a 1-to-1 ratio. Now we get into, I'll throw some more into the mix, and the red line is the 2-to-1 ratio. So just to make you aware of the different aspects of these funds and how they go ahead and move. Again, the 1.5 and the 2.0 funds will not, if you buy them at the beginning of the year and you expect to double, if the S&P went up 10% and you're expecting 20% return, it will vary from that, not just a 2-to-1, it's a 2-to-1 on a daily basis.
Okay. You know, there's not been any animals around.
So what do we have here on TSP tips? Okay, we showed you what kind of funds it has, and this is how we go ahead and analyze the funds, and they go ahead and send them to you. This is the lead page here. It's very similar to what you saw with TSP tips, but it's a little bit of a display is different. So we'll kind of look at that right now. Again, this is the ProFunds tips web page. Okay, so here's some of the things that we look for. I talked about the different models that we have, the classic and ultra, and then we have the sector tips married up with those different funds.
Let me get the towel.
In classic and ultra, we'll go ahead and look at the top 4, while in sector, we usually invest in up to 10 funds. And we use performance rankings in order to determine what those select funds should be. We'll use moving averages, not the ones that you saw displayed previously, but a different set of those. And then we'll also use circuit breakers in order to say, okay, once we've purchased these funds, when they hit a new post-purchase high, if they happen to drop off either 2.5% or 5%, we would and exit that position. And if everyone can please mute their speakers, please, I'd appreciate it.
We can Andrew's iPhone, BW. There's another iPhone. If you guys could please mute, that would be great. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so when we go through this, there are different stages in the market. And when I see the performance ranking and they're assigned a different grade for each of these things, so that if you look at it and the markets are really bullish in this blue area where the price is above the 50-day moving average, is above the 200 and the performance ranking, and we were going to invest in 10 funds in the sector, this would be 10%. So 10% of the model would go into here, 9.8, 9.6, 9.4. If it has usually a D or an F, it's not going to be in this blue box anyway. So we use a longer term moving average to decide where you are on this ladder as you keep on increasing the bullishness. And then we also have it when you're in a bearish run as the market is falling off. There are underlying short-term moving averages that we utilize within there also for the different grades. Okay, so let's just take a look at the most recent point that we had. Back here in last November, the markets started to turn around and started ascent, a bullish climb, and pretty much all the way up until the period around mid-April. Then it started to sell off. At that point, we had about 4 months in a row of increasing gains. And then over here, it sold off during April, and then it started to come back up in the middle of May. So we're going to concentrate on this 30-day period, the last 2 weeks of April and the first 2 weeks of May, and what it would look like on on ProFunds tips. So here we are on April 16th. Up here is the verbiage that we sent out, and here it is in the blue box. So in classic and ultra tips, we're going to go 100% cash. In the sector tips, we're selling NASDAQ, Ultra NASDAQ 100, Internet and Technology. So in these, you're going to see, it's not like the TSP where we're incrementally getting in and out. You can see the transitions occur very quickly. So here, the circuit breakers were starting to pop, and we went 100% in cash into these 2 different models. Models are classic, again, the ultra and the sector. The nice thing about the ProFunds tips, and this is totally different than the TSP tips, is that there's no trade restrictions. TSP, we're stuck with 2 transactions per month, maybe 3 if there was if you're going to increase your cash, but this you can do on a daily basis. And usually you will get an email, or excuse me, this is available on the site on a daily basis, and we'll keep you informed that way. Okay, so 2 weeks passed. Now we're at the beginning of May, and we're still no changes in classic and ultra tips. But in sector tips, we're starting to put some money in. And as I mentioned, rates were rising a little bit during that point, so we used that. Interest rates, again, how they interact with banks, and we also like the utilities. Okay, so you can see how we're starting to change that mix on the sector fund, still maintaining cash within the classic and ultra tips. The day afterward, we start getting some more action on the classic tips, and you can see us start increasing it. We went from 100% to almost 70% invested between the second and the third as we move money in. And then you can also see on the far right where we purchased the ultra emerging funds and the ultra China funds. Notice we got rid of the rising rate ones, and that was on the day, the next day. Now we have the second and the third. And here's how it looks also when we do that performance rankings. You might have heard me talk about this. Performance rankings are nothing more than a weighted average of each fund's return over 4 different periods. It looks at the 1 month, 3 months, 6 month, and 12-month performance, and then it weights them, sums it up, and you get a performance ranking. We sort it in order to figure out what sectors are performing well. And let's say for sector, these were the top 10. Okay. And then we'll put the allocation in there based upon that pyramid scale that you saw with the different colors as it increases. So for all of these, they had a 10. So they were in that top box with with a very good score of performance rating. So that's where we started to move the money back in. And here's what it looked like on the 17th when we put out the notice. Notice that we are now fully invested back into the different classic, ultra, and also sector tips. Again, no trade restrictions, so it makes it look very easy to go ahead and do these. Now, how do you do these? Okay, before I do that, explain that to you. This just shows you the different models that we have here. And we tracked it from, this is from beginning of 2000 to the end of 2022. And you'll notice that we picked this area because that's when you had the COVID market at the beginning in the spring of 2020. And then in 2022, the markets fell off. It kept on stair-stepping itself down. You notice on the blue ultra fund up here and over here on the left side also, wherever it's a flattish type of line, that's when we would go 100% in cash. And then hopefully when it turns around, we'll go ahead and move back in. Okay, so that's the 2 bear markets, 2 bear markets in 2000 and 2002. What does 2020 look like? Again, just that one, like previous slide, had many years. This is just during the COVID period, and you can see how it works. Now you know a little bit about it. You've set up an account, and now you want to go ahead and take a look and see, how do I access this online? Similar to what you do with TSP tips. You would already get information from ProFunds acknowledging that you've opened up the account. You'd have a shareholder account number, and you click on this box. It was one of the buttons on the home page up there on how to register, and then it takes you through a 4-step process where you enter in your username and password, and it's pretty similar to any other subscription. For any other service in order to move funds around. I'm not going to get into this too much, but actually you would just get in there, you'd register, and then you would create a new model when you very first set it up. okay? And these would be for all of your funds. And then when you get the daily updates, then you go ahead and modify that model that you have set up, okay? And then like you saw in the previous slides, for ultra tips, we would go ahead and say, we want you to purchase allocate 40% into ultra NASDAQ 100, ultra bull 28.5, Dow 19, and ultra mid cap 9, and then 3.5 remaining. So it's very similar to what you do with TSP on the TSP investment mix screen. After you punch that in, it's going to ask you to review it. If it's not good, you can go back in there and change whatever you need be. But if it is good, you'll hit preview order, which will then take you to the place order. You get to look at what your current weighting is, and then go ahead and allocate it accordingly, according to the model that of ProFunds tips. And then you would see your order confirmation, where the would be sent to you, along with the transaction number. And then what I would recommend is that even though you receive confirmation and that it's placed, I would go back and recheck the pending order just to make sure that you didn't make a typo or anything like that. Be very careful when you go through and you select these funds, because you can see the Ultra Bull one, if you plug it in the wrong edge or name, such as the Ultra Bear, your results would be significantly different. Okay. So again, that's what you have there. So what I tried to do tonight is just to give you an overview as to what ProFunds family of funds are, how you can go ahead and open an account, what is the model that we use, give you an idea of how we will go ahead and notify you. And then the last step would be how you would make the reallocation on a daily basis. So without any further ado, what I'd like to do now is open it up to any questions that anyone might have. So any in the chat?
I have a question. When do you place the trades? What time of day? What time do you need to place the trades?
Okay, every day, let's say, well, let's start out on Monday. We usually send out the tips on Saturday morning. So you will have up until 15:55, 3:55 Eastern time every day in order to enter in Monday's tips, which you should receive on Saturday. Okay. It's not the 12 o'clock cutoff like it is with TSP tips. So you have up to 15:55. And then once the market closes on Monday, we'll go ahead and send out Tuesday's recommendation prior to noon on Tuesday. So you have all afternoon to go ahead and execute the trade. And that'll occur every day through Friday. And then, of course, after Friday's closed, that's when we'll do the Saturday update, send it to you, so have all weekend to reallocate it, or wait until Monday. So again, we try to send it out. We usually hit noon is the latest, but a lot of times we're there earlier in the morning in order to send it out. So any other questions, please?
Is ProFunds Tips an app, or where do you find that information? How do you sign up for ProFunds Tips?
Okay, the ProFunds Tips is not an app which you're going to receive on the telephone. What you will do is that you'll get a dashboard like those screenshots that I showed you previously, where it had the 3 columns. You'll go to the website after you sign on, and then you'll just access this, and then go ahead and take those numbers and go to your own account at ProFunds and go ahead, use that reallocation process.
But it's a different website from ProFunds.
It's a different fund site than ProFunds.
Okay. All right, if anybody else has questions, if you want to unmute and ask them now, feel free to. All right.
I have a question.
Yes, Sherry.
When you it look like you send the daily the allocation. Are you going to send the people the detail your chart analysis as well?
No, we will not do that.
Okay.
What we do is that those screens, it's going to look exactly like when I showed you that scenario between the middle of April to the middle of May. You'll go to a website. It's ProFunds Tips. After you get a subscription, it'll go ahead and show you how to go ahead and it'll display your dashboard, okay, which everybody sees. So then you will go ahead and take that information, the numbers for each fund, the percentage, and go ahead and type it into your account, your online account at ProFunds.
Okay.
We do provide also a write-up at the end of the week, similar to what you see on TSP Tips. But just like you see with TSP Tips, the last paragraph or a few sentences usually talks about the CS and the I fund. What we'll do in this case is we'll talk about the ProFund specifically. So that's
Okay.
pretty much how it works.
I have another question.
Yes, please.
Should your initial investment be what you feel comfortable with?
Well, that's hard to go ahead and answer because, yeah, it I don't want to say it depends, but yes, it does depend because I can't see how much money you have invested and what your risk tolerance is. The classic tips I would recommend for anybody, but the ultra and the sector tips, first of all, I would go ahead and you have to take the time to do this on a daily basis. Now, it's not going to take long. It's only less than 5 minutes in order to do this. But the point about it is that it doesn't take long, but you better stay with it. And the other thing is that it's really for use within a tax deferred account, because that way you don't have to worry about, as in an individual or a joint taxable account, with all the tax reporting at the end of the year. Although they do make it very easy to go ahead and do that because ProFunds, in addition to send you all the transactions, they're going to go ahead and sum up everything for you and group it in a total number. Okay.
How much money do you need to start your investment?
Okay. To start up an account at ProFunds, it takes $15,000, and that can be either from an individual account, let's say, or a tax deferred account. Specifically, I've used ProFunds. I've have my retirement money, the majority of it in there. I feel comfortable with it, but of course I should feel comfortable with it. But the other thing is that what I've done over the years is that I am able to take withdrawals out of my TSP tips, out of my TSP account, and go ahead and shift it on over the ProFunds and do a tax and rollover from one account to another. So I would recommend, if you wanted a hard number, I would say, upwards of maybe 25%. But anything over that, I would go ahead and take a look at. And you can always start with the minimum account, let's say of 15,000, and go ahead and add to that. And also, I know that you can go ahead, once you sign up for ProFunds Tips, there is a trial period also. So you can go ahead and use paper trading in order to see how you're doing. Again, you have to be comfortable with it. But the nice thing is that we do have strategies that help get in and out. It has a daily basis, and there's no transaction fees.
How do
Good
you roll
question.
15K from TSP to ProFunds Tips?
Okay, how I did it, I just went to I currently am still contributing into my TSP. I haven't retired yet. I won't retire until the 30th of September, but I have reached 59 and a half, so I was able to do some transfers, withdrawals. So how you do it is that you would first send the paperwork into ProFunds, and they will go ahead with a direct rollover form, telling them that you want to take the money out of ProFunds. At concurrent with that, I mean, taking the money out of TSP. Concurrent with that, you go to the TSP website, there's a withdrawal section, and that's where you'll type in all of your administrative information. I think it'll automatically populate it in there. And you'll also say, okay, this is how much I want to transfer to ProFunds. And then they will go ahead and initiate that transfer as a direct rollover. So you never receive it. So that makes it really convenient for you in order to do that. But everything, the reason why you need to set up the account at ProFunds initially before you contact TSP is so they'll know what ProFunds account number to go ahead and send it to. But it's pretty straightforward. I've done it about 3 times, and it works well.
And that direct rollover form is on ProFunds.
Yes, the direct rollover form is on ProFunds, but you'll also need the TSP form that needs to be filled out because that's the one they're actually going to use with the account number from ProFunds.
All right, how much is the sign up?
There is no cost for the sign up.
What about for ProFunds tips?
Excuse me, are we talking about a subscription price
Or
for ProFunds? If we're talking about subscription price, it depends upon what period it is. Justin is not with me. He's had a death in the family tonight. He runs all of that. But it has that information on the ProFunds tips. Once you hit the get started, you'll see how much the app costs. It's more expensive than the TSP tips. I don't want to give a number because I can't. I can access it right now, but I think it's in the $100 range or somewhere around there. Don't quote me on that.
per month.
No, this is per year.
And it's different based on which tips they sign up for.
Yes, it differs on how many tips you want to go ahead and
So if
get.
you just want to do classic, it's one price.
Right.
Okay.
It's incremental, depending upon how many models you want to get.
Yep, Justin wrote he'll send out the link to ProFunds tip site and some brief instructions afterwards.
Okay. Thank you, Justin.
ProFunds tips is $10 a month or $100 a year for a single model. Yep. And then you can change your selection periodically.
Okay. Sir,
I have a question. Can you hear me?
yes, I can.
Okay. What's the performance of ProFund over the year? Let's say the classic. What should one expect if you actually sign up for it?
I would expect about 3 to 4% above what the S&P is for the classic. You can look at those charts. You'll see it. It's a brown line. But one of the main drivers there is that we'll move money to the sidelines like we did during COVID with ProFunds. So you can go ahead and see that.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can see what's displayed now is the 2020.
Okay.
And that right there on the bottom right-hand side. will
Yep.
Show the,
Yeah, at the bottom right side shows the different for that 1 year period. The
Okay.
performance.
So, and you say you were using moving average. Do you, what other indicators do you use as far as when you're tracking or to make determination?
Well, the biggest one that I have found is that performance ranking. Because what that does is that really drives your allocation into those areas that are performing. I have it right here. The model that we have out today that we sent out this morning, the classic, we had about 40% in large cap growth, 30% in NASDAQ 100, and 20% in the bull fund, the S&P 500. If you're looking at the sector funds, I'll give it the top 5 out of the top 10. Our top holding Well, these are all at 10% each. So the top 5 funds are semiconductor. Of course, you've seen NVIDIA and
Right.
Broadcom over the last week. So we put a preference on them. Then we have the Ultra NASDAQ 100. Then we have technology, then Ultra Bull, and then communication services. Like I mentioned during the presentation, we did take a allocation in both consumer staples and consumer debt discretionary this morning.
Okay. So you're saying this is a daily thing that you're doing. One would have to be at your computer or whatever when you send out those alerts or whatever. So
Or
people really,
anytime during the day. Just go to the website, if it's lunchtime or something like that. The nice thing is that you have until 3:55 in the afternoon to go ahead and place the trade.
okay.
And you'll
All right,
see
thanks.
on this one chart that I have here, everywhere where you see in all these colored boxes that go from the red at the bottom left corner all the way up to the bull at the very blue at the top.
All right.
We look at that area and where is that fund sitting? So like with the semiconductor fund, if I mentioned it just recently, and it was at the top of that sort, its price is first of all, its price is above the 50, which is above the 200. So it fits into this area, but because its performance ranking is greater than 15, I think it was like 25 or something like that on the previous slide, it falls into here, and that's why we give it a 10% allocation. Conversely, if the fund was a little bit less performance ranking, it would get a 9.8, 9.6, 9.4. And then, of course, down here is in the bottom left-hand corner, it falls off to 0. But on the right side, it starts to decrease until it eventually goes down to 0 over here. Anytime the performance report is less than 0, we will not even take an allocation in that fund. So it's really find out what it is, where it is on the chart. And we also not just use, there's another set of moving averages that lies underneath this, which gives us more of a shorter term perspective also.
So because these are simple moving averages you're talking about right now over here, right?
Yes.
And now do you move from like, do you look at 20? Do you also
No.
use the 20? No?
No, we will not use, I was just using that for illustration purposes. If you
Okay,
were going to
okay.
use this for a buy and hold, we use this model over here, like I mentioned, that box that goes up and down. That gives
Okay.
us where, so there's, and again, I've been following ProFunds for about 25 years now. I used to use Fidelity Select Funds, and then they changed it so that when you wanted to buy in industry, let's say banks, you had to hold it for at least 30 days. And then I tried RideX funds for a while, and I wound up going to ProFunds. They came around, very personable form, accessible, and I like dealing with them. And again, no trade resist, no trade transaction costs, and no limits on the amount of trades. It's just a good company I like.
Okay.
So you sign it, so just to clarify, so it says, so you sign up for ProFunds first, create an account with ProFunds, then sign up for ProFunds tips, then you transfer a rollover of 15K from TSP and complete forms on both TSP and ProFunds.
Yes.
Okay.
And don't forget, this can be used. It's not just making a transfer from TSP. If you have an old 401k that's kind of from a previous job and it has a balance of at least 15K, you could transfer that money in. So, and like I said, you can use it for individual and joint accounts. But the only thing I caution there is that you might have also everything generates here is a short-term trade. So you could have wash sales, which is another item that you want to be concerned about. But I do recommend it for tax deferred accounts.
I have a quick question for the account. So if I don't have this deferred account, people under 59 and a half are not allowed to take out money to transfer. Is there other way, like a regular account?
Yes, you can establish a regular account if you have if you had that threshold. The other thing that like I just mentioned that might be accessible for you, I don't know whether you or your spouse or whatever has an existing account. A lot of people have these IRAs from a job that they had 10 or 15 years ago. And if you're not 59 and a half, you could just do it because it's not an active IRA. And TSP, you're still employed, so you can't do it until you're 59 and a half. But if you have an IRA, say you were working for the state of Virginia and you ceased working for them 15, 20 years ago, you could take that money in that IRA and go ahead and move it on over. That's another option that you have. Okay. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions also?
Can you please explain the single model and the multiple model? Because kind of somebody tagged the subscription fee for 3 model.
The difference between classic, sector,
Okay.
and ultra.
Let me get
Oh,
back.
okay.
Let me get back here to the very beginning. The 3 models that we have, and this is your website, they pretty much mirror the classic, the ultra, and then the ultra sector, which is on the far left. This is the 1-to-1 is classic, ultras, the larger indices, and then this folds in those larger indices plus the different sectors. Now I'll just review those slides real quickly. You can see everything on classic is 1-to-1. The ultra tips is 2-to-1, major market indices. And then in sector tips, you get everything that was in ultra plus all the different sectors. And that's everything right there. So again, those are the different models that you have available.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything? Okay, I'd just like to say thank you so much for allowing us to share this time with you. It's good. It's always good talking to different people about investments. If you have any further questions, please use the contact at TSP Tips email in order to contact us. We monitor that, or just give me a phone call. My website is Weisert Investment Services, and my contact information is listed there. And I always enjoy talking investments with different people. Okay, well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate it. Everybody's showing up. Thank you.